The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box from the mighty Genesee Brew House. It's good to be back. Thank you to Toby and Batik for covering for me last week. Nice to have Bob Bleier back in, which means we're going to talk some serious football today.
Always good to be in with
New
this
England
group.
Patriots legend.
Absolutely.
Or was it the Boston Patriots?
Boston Patriots when I played.
Mike Catalana, co-hosting Pat Duffy.
back.
I swear, I don't get it.
This is my favorite New Jersey. It is an NHL 94 Dale Howard-Chuck Sabres jersey. It's like pixelated, like it was when you played in the video game.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get it? It's got the pixelated saber. And
Now I do. Hey, let's talk some football. Fresh off the Alabama-Clemson championship game, how does that happen? I mean, you get such a margin to just, how does that happen?
That Lawrence kid is dynamic. I'm telling you, he made some throws that I don't think a lot of NFL quarterbacks would have thrown. Kind of reminds me of me a little bit when I was playing. Tall,
I thought the same thing.
tall, skinny, long blonde hair. But
University of Richmond?
He was only 4 inches taller and probably had a 10 times the cannon. But other than that,
Is that where we're headed?
yeah, right. No,
They all got to be this size?
I tell you what, man. I think it's living proof that sure you can run the ball, win a lot of games, but I think you need a trigger man that really that controls the game, doesn't turn the ball over, and can make those tough throws on third down especially. And he did it the whole night.
Oh, and Alabama had one of them too, though.
Yeah, they did. And up to that point, Tua had been a dominant player. I still don't think he's 100% healthy, but he didn't look like the same guy. I think what you found out with Alabama and Clemson was they were the two best teams, unquestioned the two best teams. They had the equal athletes. And you saw what happened. Clemson was more prepared. They looked like the better coached team, which doesn't happen with Saban very often. I think it puts to rest all that thought about which NFL team Alabama was going to beat. I guess now Clemson.
Well, if Clemson beat Bama, the
yeah,
Bills
right,
are in
they
trouble.
could win. But it was great. And I would say, what he has done, what Dabo has done with Clemson is impressive. And looks like he's not going anywhere, and his quarterback's not going anywhere, so they're going to be a force for a while.
You love seeing the Alabama coach pace the sidelines without any answers.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, it's funny, too. Like, only Nick Saban is so evil that he will make you cheer for Dabo Sweeney, right? Like, both of those guys are complete jerks. But what I found most interesting about this game, and Saban referenced it after the game a little bit, how they suffered on the back end. Alabama had no defensive line switch. They had 4 guys that could play, and they had no one to relieve them. How does a program like that, with the prestige that they have in a part of the country that just breeds these huge kids, how are they not able to recruit defensive linemen enough to beat Clemson? Because if they had 2 guys that could have rotated in, you're going to get better pressure, you're not going to get exhausted, and you noticed in the second half of the game when it got away from them, you had guys, hands on their hips, having a hard time breathing. 2 guys, 2 solid recruits, might have won you that game against Clemson if you had them there.
Yeah.
The other thing, I was going to say about Dabo, he's easy to sort of pick on a little bit because I get the impression that he's a really good guy. I mean, I'm listening to the people talk about him, and I listen to this. He sets up his schedule for his entire staff and the entire program 1 year in advance, gives people dates that he knows they shut the program down, they have dates for vacation, dates for days off. Very big believer in everybody understanding their roles, knowing well in advance. He wants people to have time with their family. You listen to the way players respond to him. Now, look, Nick Saban has some of that too, but I think he's been able to recruit, bring players in, players who love the program, and he doesn't appear to do it in a disrespectful way that at times I think that's what you get out of Saban.
Why don't you go ask that kicker that missed that field goal a couple years ago and got screamed in his face multiple times on national television how kind and caring
Okay, I'm
Dabo
not-
That
Sweeney
wasn't
is.
part of the plan.
A coach doesn't.
I did not put this on the
A
itinerary.
coach can't yell at a player.
Okay, yelling is one thing. Following him on national television, an 18-year-old kid screaming in his face. Look at you, Mr. Tough Guy. I'm a tough blazer.
Bobby, last thing we
Millennial.
got. So it's 4 times these teams have played now, and who's going to bet against a 5th? This is a problem for college football, don't you think? That it's so top heavy.
I agree with you. I think the playoff system maybe should be expanded. Mike, I don't know what your opinion is on that, but maybe to 8 teams. But to Pat's point, I think Alabama, if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. Alabama dominated the line of scrimmage in every game they played this year. They were 3 and out how many times? Their defensive linemen were off the field all the time.
Sure.
So I think that, they weren't prepared for the pound and ground kind of system that Clemson gave them, as well as the ability to make those quick touchdown passes. So
Last thing.
Sure.
Very nice.
Well said.
This is the Rochester Press Box from the Genny Brew House. We'll talk about the Buffalo Bills. Remember them? Next. The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box from the mighty Genny Brew House. Well, it's Buffalo Bills offseason. Mike, I'm at a bit of a loss as to where I should be focusing my attention right now.
Well, I think for now, it's on the coaching staff. And I think Sean McDermott looked at the way the season ended, and there's reasons to be optimistic, but they were still 6-10. And they had some issues, and he's addressed some of that. Everybody knew special teams was a disaster. And then you make the moves on the offensive line and at wide receiver. Maybe a little bit of a surprise there just because some of the guys had progressed a little bit. But I think they're going to really be focused on that in the offseason. And I guess now we're going to find out who they're pinpointing for those positions. But everything still is going to focus on Josh Allen, right? Who's helping him the most? I think Brian Daboll is going to have a little more say maybe in some of the guys who come in the coaching staff. But I think this is where teams evolve a little bit, where McDermott with Daboll, maybe Leslie Frazier, realize kind of what they need around them before they get into free agency and the draft and all the things they're going to need.
You've been critical of the staff now. They go into this is the start of their third year in. How much is at stake for them, do you think?
It's huge because, I think McDermott made a mistake up front saying we have a 3-year plan. Him and Bean said vocally multiple times we have a 3-year plan. This is it. It's pot or not. And if you don't do it, now I have the ability to take your audio. Folks have the ability to take your thing. Well, you told me there was a 3-year plan here. You told me something was going to happen. There's no more excuses to be had. There's no more processes to be said. There's no more respecting the football to do. It has to get done this year. There has to be significant progress. If not, you look like a giant liar.
Well, but okay, they've been sloppy in how they've gotten there, and they've made multiple mistakes. But if you look at it from up top, they got through the year with terrible cap issues. They drafted their quarterback of the future. But to your point, now they've set themselves up for this year. So it does look like a plan.
They've set themselves up to potentially be successul. You got to spend the money the right way. You got to draft the right way. So if you don't do that and you have set yourself up to do this, see ya.
What are you looking at?
I think the league's becoming a scoring league. If you can't put up 25 to 30 points a game, you're not going to win in the NFL anymore. So I think they need some really great skilled people. I was really encouraged by Josh Allen at the end of the season. I've never been a Bills fan, being a Patriots inbred, but I really want to get on the bandwagon for Rochester people. I really, really do. And I know I overthought last year and thinking Bills were going to win 10 games, but I'm very encouraged by the way Allen played.
Overthought is the word I'd use.
Yeah, I did. I tried to get in the weeds and think all the reasons why they were going to be good. But hey, how about Kyle Williams? Great hands, huh?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, they should have used him more in the offense.
You know,
right?
catch that Anquan Bolden in Bill's history.
I look at the Indianapolis Colts as a team that got it together really quick, focusing on what they felt they needed, and even with a first-year coach, they flipped the script in 1 year. Is that something the Bills can look at and says maybe there's something there for us?
Yes, except you have a veteran quarterback. Yeah. You have a guy who has played at a MVP level, where the Bills, I would say you have to look at them more, and we've said this before, more like the Bears model of a team that went out and got the quarterback, had a defense to build around, try to get the weapons, and then it doesn't mean it's all going to work. And when you look at the Bears, it worked to a point, and they still have a ways to go, and then you have to hope that Trubisky progresses. But to your point about the Colts, it is funny when you look at a team that has a quarterback that people thought might be done, have a head coach who didn't get any of those interviews and eventually got hired, and a guy in Ballard who's the general manager that most people did not see as a prime candidate, and all three of those guys had a great year.
And a bad offensive line.
Well, that's turned into a great one.
But if you're talking about the Colts versus Bills, there's one huge thing that everyone's leaving out here. The division the Colts play in versus the division the Bills play in. That AFC South is a tire fire.
Okay, it is now. The difference between the two divisions is obviously the AFC East has been in the most top-heavy division in the history of the NFL with the Patriots, whereas that division, the teams were certainly bunched together. Jacksonville is a playoff team. Houston's been a playoff team. So you have teams that are better. Mm-hmm. In total, that division was better than the AFC.
Okay.
It's a dumpster fire now.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We are at the Genny Brew House. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Today is all about belief. Right? It's not enough for me to believe it. It's not enough for Coach Hill or Coach Barstrom to believe it. You have to be the ones that believe that you are capable of running the way that we all know you are capable of, and that those negative thoughts that are coming into your head, you can acknowledge and push away. What's your response to them going to be? 5 more meters, 5 more meters, 5 more meters.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. The Rochester Press Box here from the Genny Brew House. Like it or not, and I love this, that they're having a kicking contest sponsored by a beer company in Chicago, giving a case of beer for a year to anybody who can make a 43-yard field goal out in the parking lot.
I love this because, one, I love free beer, but two, it's an illustration of how hard these jobs actually are, right? You got these people in Chicago sending death threats to Cody Parkey because he missed this field goal. You're insane. But I don't think anyone understands how hard it is to kick that field goal with nobody around. Then you have television. Then you have 350-pound men rushing at you as hard as they can. It's an impossible feat. By the way, I did hit a 37-yard field goal in Bills camp a couple of years ago, no big deal, with about 5 yards to clear. So I probably could get the free beer. But what I'm saying is, I always like seeing guys with big mouths get their comeuppance, which is why I like hanging out with Mike all the time.
Was yours on a tee or not?
No, it was grass with the thing on it.
All right, so look, that game,
Yeah.
your team in the next round. How do you see the Eagles game this week?
It does show you something there, right? I mean, in fairness to Parkey, too, he missed the field goal, but the Bears, number one defense, let the Eagles drive down for the winning touchdown. They had him on 4th down. They could have won the game before that even happened. Foles has been clutch. That has been the difference. They're not scoring a ton of points. I mean, they had 16 in that game against a good defense. The difference with the Eagles has been the defense has turned around so much. They were embarrassingly bad through most of them, especially the midway point of the season, including a game in New Orleans where what's interesting about it is the Saints absolutely rubbed it in at the end. They threw a touchdown pass with about 3 minutes left. Malcolm Jenkins might have told Sean Payton he was number one. You follow me there? So that part helps, but the game's in New Orleans. It's a tough place. I think it's going to be closer than 48-7. I think the Eagles have a legitimate shot. New Orleans has dropped a little bit, and they had that week off. I think the Eagles have a very legitimate shot. I think it's a close game, but I think it's going to be hard to beat New Orleans.
Do you buy that getting routed the first time they saw this team is a benefit to them the second time around?
Yeah, I mean, because the Saints don't have that edge on them. They blew them out. I mean, you could say they know they're better than them. Well, the point spread says that too.
So we got the Eagles from the Philly guy, Patriots alumni. How do you see the Chargers game there?
Well,
this might be the best team in the conference they're playing.
I agree. I think that how do you not like the biggest trash-talking quarterback in the NFL, Phillip Rivers, right?
Oh, yeah,
how do you not want to squeeze for him with the career he's had? He's a grinder. He took a lot of shots for many, many years. He gets back up. I think the Chargers are probably going to score 24 points, and if they can get in Brady's face, he's shown that he's got a little bit of happy feet. Underthrows a lot of guys with pressure in his face, so I don't know. It's going to be a very, very interesting game. I'm going to have to go with the Patriots, though. I think it's going to be interesting.
Who do you like in your game?
The Eagles game, I'm going to say, obviously I want the Eagles to win the game. I think it's going to be a hard game for them to win. I will tell you this. If the Eagles pull off the upset this week, they're going back to the Super Bowl.
Oh, listen.
Oh, look, you get a chance to pick them both.
I like San Diego.
That's okay.
I like Los Angeles, and I think New Orleans is just too powerful. I think it's over, and that you're very wrong.
This is the Rochester.
I'm going to change my.
Excuse me.
Change my bet. I'm going with Chargers.
And watch out.
Did you just flip?
I
He did.
flipped.
Flipped on his team. And watch out for the Colts against the Chiefs. Absolutely, the Colts can win that game.
All right, even though that game's already over.
Watch out for that.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We are from the Genny Brew House. Unfinished Business is next.
Good stuff.
And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
2 reps, $2. Now we're wrapped up to
Dunkin' Go-Tos, a great deal for $2, $4, or $5. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back. We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genny Brew House. We are at the Brew House. Unfinished Business is brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat.
Let's talk about the biggest injustice in sports today. Jeff Skinner, second in the NHL in goals, is not elected straight out to an All-Star game. Second in the NHL in goals. And he's having a season like he's never had before in his life and getting major props for it. Jack Eichel is the lone representative for the Sabres right now. And as we speak, there's an opportunity for Sabres fans to go online and vote Jeff Skinner as the last man in. And there are a lot of people within NHL circles that are saying, well, the reason that Skinner was having such an amazing season goals-wise is because he was on a line with Jack Eichel. And then Jack goes down. And as we speak, as we tape this show right now, in the 3 games that Eichel's been gone, Skinner has 3 goals, 2 and 1 of them, responsible for, if I'm not mistaken, the game-winning goals in both of the ones that he scored. This guy deserves to be an all-star. And they talk about bias for small city teams, small market teams. I don't always buy into it. But how do you look at a story like this? A guy with $1 million smile, plucky attitude on a team that's on its way up, second in the NHL in goals. And he's not an all-star? Get him a face, man.
Yeah. No, he should be, and you're right. And those goals that he scored have been the type of goals that a number 1 player scores. It's not like he, deflection or tip in or rebound. Especially in that Florida game, made 2 great plays. And the goal the other night, when they ended up beating the Devils, was an all-star goal that he had performed for them without Eichel, and he's been even better with them. I'm with you.
And you always want to make room for the plucky guy.
Plucky guy. How often do I get to say the word plucky?
How's his smile?
$1 million.
$1 million.
Bobby.
My thoughts are dealing with the NCAA basketball and NCAA football divisions on their own. One of the problems that I'm facing is with the one-and-done theory behind some of these big NCAA basketball players at Duke and Kentucky and so forth and so on. And then when you bring it into the NCAA football programs, I love the fact and the rule that players have to be there for three years before they're eligible for the NFL draft. I'm kind of biased. I understand the money in basketball and the notoriety and the number of games played, but I'm not a proponent of the one and done. I think it's changing the game in the NCAAs, but I think maybe basketball should follow a little bit more what the NCAA football programs are doing. Give them three years in the NCAA, maybe get a degree, because we know that any pro sport is short-lived. So I'm against the one and dones.
Well, if they do that, they're going to have to connect it to allow high school players to play. Because you can imagine, like, Zion having to play 3 years at Duke. That's not going to happen.
Never going to happen. It's just a thought that I have. It'll never change. But there's too much money involved in pro sports. It just is.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
It's a copycat league in the NFL, right? So everybody wants to get, and we all know who it is, they want to get the next Sean McVay, right? Because he was the young guy that came in and delivered. And so you see these teams hiring head coaches in the NFL, and they all want the young, offensive-minded guy. And I get that idea. And Sean McVay had a lot of success, even at a young age, already in the NFL, and then he got his chance to move up. Cliff Kingsbury? Now, look, this guy may turn out to be a fantastic head coach. But if you were the Arizona Cardinals, you brought a respected veteran coach in Steve Wilks. You gave them a bad team, no matter what they say, and a rookie quarterback and said, go out there and win, and then you dumped him in a year. And you brought in a guy who is, by his resume, not even close to qualified to be an NFL head coach, right? He was a failed coach in college. He does not have NFL experience, and he had a cup of coffee as a player in the NFL. Now, it might work, and you might have found the next Sean McVay to lead your franchise. But look at the playoffs right now. At this point, there were 8 teams in the playoffs, 7 of them coached by guys 50 or older. Now, I'm not saying you need the old guy. I'm not saying all those old guys make it work. But there's no guarantee that guy is going to be Sean McVay just because he's young and he's got one of those half beers. That's a real beer. Not what these other guys
look
are
at
doing
him.
with the beer.
Look at you trying to compliment me at the end because you know I'm coming after old guy, young guy. What are all
it's
these
not really
young
that
guys?
good of a
I'm
beer.
going after him with a cup of coffee in the NFL.
And I understand the Arizona, Green Bay, Cleveland, those three,
Yeah.
at least two of those teams within 3 years are looking for another.
Well, it is what has happened, and guys who are considered. Look, and it's not just specifically about age, because I look at Brian Daboll for the Bills and think his resume is way better than these guys who have gotten hired.
2 years ago, we thought he was underqualified.
Underqualified, right, at that point. So go ahead, try to find your next Sean McVay, and see if you're getting that guy or the guy who's just out the door in 2 years.
Unfinished Business brought to you by Duncan. This is the Rochester Press Box from the Genny Brew House. Bobby, thank you again. It's always great to have you in. It's always amusing, at least.
See you next week.
All right, and by the way, I take it back. It's not that nice of beer.
I will not tolerate this ageism from old men staring into cameras.
All right, we've heard from everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.